Welcome to Day in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and I'm excited because we are continuing our election series. And Chris Kisiel, who is candidate for re-election on the school committee and man around town, who is always involved in so many things and has been a frequent guest on the show to talk about many, many things across the city. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you.
First thing I have to know is how you've managed to clone yourself, because you have had so much involvement in the city, running your own business, on school committee, the Lions Club. I know I'm missing other things. Oh, Woburn Chamber of Commerce. I see you in all the pictures with all the new businesses you have joined. Tell us how you find a way to balance it all.
You know, it's actually worked out over the years. Having my own business gives me a lot of flexibility on my time and my schedule. So being part of the school committee initially was great, because when there was a subcommittee meeting mid-afternoon or something, I would just book off that amount of time needed. My nights, I knew ahead of time. Our schedule's pretty straightforward. You know, the second Tuesday and last Wednesday of the month. A couple of special meetings here and there, but those are things that we know ahead of time. So owning my own business was huge, because I was able to have that flexibility and get around to the events at the different schools and the sports teams, things like that, and to stay involved as a school committee member. So that's worked out well. And then as time evolved, the Lions Club, which I've been a member with for 20 plus years at least, that same thing. Certain nights, always seem to be able to work it out with the schedule, and being part of the Lions and being part of the city, you know, the things that they do has been great. And, you know, definitely more of a fun side, we'll call it, and for a lot of good causes. And the Woburn Chamber, which is relatively new, is actually, it's been 2 years, believe it or not. It's been one of those things where just getting out there, and, you know, they had asked me to run the chamber a couple of years ago, and that's been fantastic. And it's just to see the growth in the city and kind of blending together the schools and businesses, which is something that they were very happy about. And that's why one of the reasons they asked me, because there's a lot of internships. There's a lot of businesses that are always looking, especially now, they're looking for help, and just people to get involved, students to get involved. So that's been great. And a lot of, you know, kind of cross donations between, you know, the businesses and Lions Club, of course, and the schools for different various reasons. So it's kind of all worked out together.
Good. Well, hopefully you also have a little time to sleep and eat and do
Oh, yeah.
other things as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, so you've been a longtime member of the school committee, and this last year didn't probably look anything like prior years due to the pandemic and the restrictions and in schools and out of schools and virtuals and all the other things. Tell us a little bit what that was like for you to serve during this time of real transition.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, over the years, and, you know, like you said, a long-term member at this point, there's been, you know, kind of normal stuff that happens throughout the year. We get, you know, new superintendent's always a big deal. And we've seen a couple of those over my terms, as well as, you know, new schools coming online, the high school being one of the first ones that was there when I got on. And, you know, just basically seeing that, new principals and a lot of new staff and things like that. So those are things that just happen, and lean years with the budget that we, you know, fight with various city and state people and different levels to try to get what we need and what we know the kids need, of course. So there's always that. And that's been the normal stuff. And everyone always said, you know, it's not easy. It is fun at the end of it all to see it all work out. And, you know, the families and kids all move on and do great and go on to better things. But this past year, to your point, it has been actually more than a year, has been crazy. It's something that no one expected, no one, you know, thought of. The funny part is we had a meeting about a week before March 13th, you know, we'll call it that day. And we had the technology director in, and the question, the thing was, you know, let's look at a 5-year plan, or, you know, start getting Chromebooks in the hands of as many kids as we can for a lot of various reasons, you know, being able to do a little bit of work at home and having the equity amongst everyone to have that. And everyone has their own, because obviously you go back a few years, and if you didn't have it, you might have 3 students in one household with one computer. So everyone's vying for time, and, you know, I have a book report due tomorrow. I need to use the computer, you know, Johnny's still on it, you know, can we switch up? So having the Chromebooks would be a great thing, or, you know, some type of computer for the system. about a week before the pandemic hit and we basically shut down, she came in front of us and spoke, and definitely don't even want to think I had anything to do with it. But I asked the question, I said, what would it take to have everyone have one? And like if we had a snowstorm or some oil tanker, which happened once in Woburn a while back, tipped over on 95 and the school system got shut down for a week or so, would we ever be able to handle something like that? And then lo and behold, about a week later, we were starting to say, well, we need a couple of $1 million to get all these Chromebooks because it doesn't look like we're coming back after 2 weeks, which I think everyone thought we were. 2 weeks, we'll go in, we'll clean up a little bit, we'll make people kind of, stop shaking hands, whatever. Something simple at the beginning is what I think a lot of people thought. So obviously that wasn't the case, and we made it work out. And with the help of course, the city, coming up with the money and getting the Chromebooks, we literally delivered all the Chromebooks and got everyone going, through the summer and into the next year. So yeah, never thought about that. And what's it look like now? Or has had it look like, I should say, is more about, the kids have transitioned and the teaching staff, everyone's been fantastic. And it's one of those things where we hope it ends soon, and we hope it obviously doesn't continue on with other things, the variants and or other situations down the road. But I think we're in a better place for that because I think we've transitioned quite well. Pivoting is what the superintendent likes to call a lot, and we did what we needed to do. And I applaud everybody, from the staff to from the cleaning custodians to the teaching staff, the parents, the kids that went virtual and then came back, and just everybody. Everyone did a great job, and it really got us through it all. And I think that's everyone deserves a little bit of applause along the way. So
it was not easy for sure. Tell us about the committees that you're on, Chris, and what you've done there this last couple years, I guess.
Sure. Currently, I'm on the curriculum subcommittee and the SSA, the Special Services, Student Services, and Achievement, as well as the policy. Curriculum is, an important piece, of course, kind of keeping up on what's going on in the schools and just in general. Just I know. We meet at least once a month with that. The SSA, the same, student services, our special ed department, and things like that. But the policy is probably the most important. I do chair that right now. I've been actually chairman of pretty much every committee since I've been on it for a little while, school committee. So I've been chairman of all of them, and they've all been great committees. The policy is probably the most important. And I say that because that's really the school committee's job, is hire a superintendent and create policy. And enforce policy, I guess, if we want to say it that way, and making sure that everything's up to date. We were just going through the policy book recently, and it's funny because some of the things that they have in there is still related to tobacco, for example, no use of tobacco. And I'm saying not now, but like we'll go back a year and a half.
When I was in middle school, we had a smoking lounge outside for students.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of crazy to imagine that.
Oh, yeah.
There was a time.
Oh, the high school, yeah, the same. The little courtyards, the glassed-in courtyards, if you wanted to, and I think you still had to be 18. You could go out there and you could smoke if you wanted, if you got them. But no, so what I'm getting at is exactly that. Things have transitioned. We're updating the wording, making sure everything's spell check and all that, with all that available now. But the main thing with the policy, like I said, is that we want to keep it up to date. We want to make sure that things that the state, MASC, if you're familiar with that, Massachusetts Association of School Committees, as well as the state, different laws, concussion laws, the masking law, which obviously is out there now from the state itself, and we're kind of waiting to see what's happening there. So policies are constantly on the move, keeping up to date with all that. And the two subcommittee members that work alongside me, as well as Dr. Baldessari. He's huge into this. That's his main focus. And we work together quite a bit, and we make sure that things are up to date. And we usually have a subcommittee meeting at least once a month for that. But with the masking, that's been, back and forth, and different things that are going on, and just updating. This is our time to update as well. We've probably had at least a couple of meetings per month for the last couple of months. So it does get a little busy on that front, but the policy definitely is one of the biggest. But it's important because if you don't have policies and people don't know what they're supposed to do, whether it be teaching staff, the staff itself, or parents, we have a manual. It is online. It is available to be looked at, and we try our best to adhere to it. And, unless there's a completely special circumstances, and then that's when we have meetings to talk about certain situations. So.
Perfect. You mentioned masking, so I just want to confirm something. So originally, the school committee voted for masks through the October 31st. Then DESE, which is the state organization, put some guidelines in place. What is the current state policy? Does that extend longer than our October 31st?
I believe it's November. I want to say the first. We're off. I think we're only off by a day. We originally talked about mid-October, and a few of us, basically said it might be too soon. Because we started a late year, just the way the Woburn tends to go after Labor Day. Really only gave us 30 days to kind of see what's going on. And some of the guideline was, you could unmask if you had 80% vaccination rates, which obviously is not going to happen at the elementary school. Staff right now, we just had our meeting. I think they're at about 95%, and the high school itself is at 64%. But when you add in the staff as part of the community, it jumps it up because not that much staff compared to student. It jumps it up to about 67%. So the ruling is 80% masks could come off for vaccinated folks. So it's not across the board, and that's going to be a tougher one. Not to really talk about what we're going to make decisions on, but that's going to be tougher because how do you know? I mean, you wear wristbands. I mean, it gets to a point where no one. We wanted the kids back in school. At the end of the day, we wanted the kids back in school, and I think parents in general wanted that.
I think we all wanted our kid. Little separation from children, I'm sure, was welcome.
Yeah.
Plus, we have good quality in-person education, so that is something that I think everyone was eager for. One last little. Let's talk one more thing about COVID, and then we'll switch topics. But so we have. I hope you don't have to address this. I hope the state or the government addresses this. But at the point where there is a FDA-approved vaccine for student populations, would you look at a requirement to add to an existing vaccine policy that already exists? We have a number of vaccines that we require our students to have before they enter school. Would you look at adding COVID vaccine to that? And if you would look at that, what would be the criteria by which you would be looking to make a decision like that?
We're going to obviously find out what the states. We have to kind of work with the state, and not just what the majority of school committees are doing. Even though that is helpful, we do get a listserv, MASC listserv. I'm sorry, which are different school committees bouncing ideas off each other and best practices and so on. The state obviously mandates certain things, and some of it is right now that rubella and mumps and all those vaccines are done obviously when you're much younger, and they're maybe need a booster at some point at teenage years and so on. So we want to kind of be in line with what the state wants. Do we want to force families to do certain things as a school committee or as an individual, as myself? No, I don't. I think it should be an individual decision, but unfortunately, some of those decisions that families may make will determine what they can do, whether they can be in person, if that's the ruling. I really hope that, this is wishful thinking, that this all ends and none of this matters, but that isn't really what's going to happen. I mean, what's going to happen is I think this will be around for a little bit. Hoping we can, kind of work on staying in school, again, most important piece. So I don't want to see like a mandate and you can't, go to school if you don't, but that could be what ends up happening. And again, it may come from the state level, even possibly the federal level, if it ever got out of hand again. But my, and I think most of the committee agrees, the biggest thing is safety, obviously, but also, we really want to keep the kids in school and whatever it takes. The hybrid was okay. Virtual, completely virtual, worked, but maybe it didn't work for a lot of families. So I definitely would love to see the kids be able to stay in, not necessarily being mandated to do anything. I think parents are, pretty intelligent and know what's good for their kids, and let them do a lot of research and find out things and tell us stuff that we don't even know and bring it to our attention. So that's just a little brief on that.
Thanks for chatting through that with me. The good news was, so COVID had maybe a little silver lining from the schools in the sense that we get a lot of money. Um, but a lot of that money was moved towards safety measures that needed to be put in place, closing gaps for students who maybe lost some time being in hybrid and not in school all the time, and quarantining and all the things that happen. What are some of the future, go forward investments that you think are a priority for our school system, thinking past sort of the getting back to normal curriculum things?
Are you saying based on the money we're getting, or just in general?
No, so just in general, when you
Oh,
look at investment strategy, things that you think we need to be thinking about, where should we be prioritizing our investments?
I use the term lightly. Mental health situations, especially with COVID, and I'm going to go back to COVID for a minute. That definitely had a huge impact on kids being out of the schools for a while. Parents, not working, whether it be by choice or being laid off, and obviously the government trying to help where they could. So I always think that the psychologists, which that's some of the people we hired recently, as well as more paras here and there, simply because the teachers are dealing with kids that are finally back. I mean, we're only a month and a half in or so, finally back into the school, and they're a little wild. It is what it is, but they're excited, and I love to see that. So I would love to see money being spent in a few areas. One is making sure everyone feels good, so to speak. And the mental health piece of it is that, we've got the situations handled that kind of come of long-term absences and so on. The other side is, on the other end, because I think it's important that we have on the higher end, and that's what we have SSA for, is not just special ed, but also the other end, which is the higher achievers. I'd like to see more of that. And I know over the years we've tried, and unfortunately, there's been a lot more mandates come down from the state for certain things that pull a lot of the money. I mean, there's only so much money. I mean, bottom line, no matter how much we think we should spend on this and that, we'd love to. I mean, we'd love to give, and that's the difference between a school committee and a council and a mayor, for example. We would take 90% of the budget if we could. I mean, just it is what it is. That's our job, and to give it to our schools and make sure it's being used in a proper way and so on. So I'd love to see on the other end, because we've got some very high achievers, a lot more advanced placement structure put in place, just really a lot more of that. So our kids, come out of the system feeling much better. You're not needing a lot of remediation at the college level, and just kind of, if they've got the capacity not to be held back. And I'm not saying that is what's happening, but I think there's a lot more in given the right pieces. I mean, I'm an artist, if you want to call it that, as a photographer. So I'd love to.
That's an art form, most definitely.
I'm not thinking more of, the drawing and so on, but as an artist, I mean, I'd love to see even more of that happening, and more of it being. That's why being part of the chamber is a great connection, because I'd love to see more of the kids getting involved. I've seen other communities where there's murals around the city and things like that. It's just cool, and I just think love to see more of that as well. So that's a lot.
Like music to my ears, like art around the city is just like a dream.
Oh, my wife and I stayed overnight in Newburyport for our anniversary, 1 year anniversary, and they just. Obviously it's a different type of community, the way it's set up, but there was music being played downtown, and there was, and it was all. They're probably not like permitted people per se, but they were just people just playing. One was playing a harp, and another was playing a guitar. And there's murals everywhere, and they got art in all the stores and shops from the local, students. I'm assuming it just was cool. It was just kind of brought everything together, and I think that's what a community is all about.
Well, I love that, and I think I'm a big believer in sort of the extension of education outside the school building environment. So. I want to talk about another practical challenge that we have in our school. So before and after school care, there are existing programs that are very good, but they seem wholly insufficient to meet the amount of need there is in the community. There's always long wait lists. There's people sort of scrambling. What's your perspective on what we can and should be doing there to help close some of the services gaps in those areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things we talked about a while back, and I know again, Dr. Baldessari was looking into it. And I don't know where it went. I'm not sure if it's under resources. It probably wouldn't be a policy thing. Could be SSA if it's more of a special needs need. Is taking one of the like for example the Wyman School, maybe not the old part, but like the newer part, which is still like 50 years old, I think. And turning it into some type of not daycare per se, but preschool need, because obviously we have it at the Reeves, at the Shamrock. I mean, there's definitely a need there. There's a lot of companies, and I talk companies here and there because of what I do. That are around that have wait lists as well. So it's not just in the school department. It's just a lot more parents. Now, did that change in the last 6 to 8 to 10 months because people were staying home and not needing it? Yes, there was definitely some holes that they didn't have, and they were looking for families. But now that's changed back a little bit. Companies are requiring people to come back. So I think, having said that, they're looking at getting more teachers, which is tough to find at this point. So I would love to see the opportunity for the school system to have something available, and maybe work it out with, because we do open camp, not open camp, I'm trying to think of the word, where the kids go into the schools, a school society. I don't know if it's still called that, where the kids go in and help out at the schools. Maybe do it something like that, where there's a certain amount of time they put in, if they've got enough credits, and if that's what they're looking to get into, maybe utilize them as, in a sense, as paras at these centers that we would have as a school department. Not necessarily for profit, but it could end up paying for itself. And that's something that Mike Baldessari was looking into, which is if we took in enough money and not, overburden the people to pay, huge bills, but enough was paid to pay the costs and the teaching staff and so on, but maybe utilize the students as well. And even students that graduated recently that, aren't, in a job yet, but that's the field they want to get into. Again, back to the community and kind of engaging a lot more people. Could be a great opportunity. I don't know how to make it come to fruition, but I just think, not giving up on it and taking some space that we have in the city and turning it into centers for these situations.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about buses. So at the beginning of the year, we did have a bus driver shortage. We had some National Guard drivers, my understanding is, come and help. I actually don't know where things are at. Are we fully staffed for bus drivers at this point?
I don't think so. Honestly, the last meeting we had, I don't even know if we touched on it. Someone might have mentioned it. I don't remember if we actually get into it. I know we talked about National Guard still. And I know that the bus companies, because they're the ones that handle it, we don't actually, get involved in that. We have a contract, they fill the drivers and so on. And again, I think that just in general, we say bus drivers. We're still looking for people to help in the cafeteria. We're still looking for substitutes, PTO staff. Just nobody's available. It's just, it's kind of a strange thing. You go into the schools, it used to be bustling, even though, we don't want a lot of people there, but the PTO is a pretty important piece in each school. And you talk to a few schools and they're like, yeah, there's a PTO president, they meet once in a while, but they're doing all virtual meetings. No one comes in, nobody's cutting paper and, making copies, the stuff that they used to do. And so I think the bus drivers just, that piece just fits into what's happening is a shortage in general. And it's a specialty. You can't just say, well, Joe, what are you doing this afternoon? Jump on a bus. It has to be obviously specific licensing and so on, and being quarried and all that. So we are working with the transportation company in general and trying. And again, I think the National Guard was really going to be on the special ed side is what we were looking at, but the buses in general, I don't think we have a shortage that I've been told. I think it was more on the special ed piece of it.
Okay, thanks. That's good clarification.
Yep.
Last question for you. When you look at our student population and you look at our staff, there is a far more diverse student population than is reflected in our current staff. And this is something we've talked about in the past. And, I know we've taken some actions to help get more diversified candidates applying for jobs and things like that. What additional measures do you think we should be doing there?
I think with our new HR department, and not to say the other one didn't, but that with the focus is on that when they are looking for folks. Years ago, I mean, Joe Crowley was on the committee, and one of the things that Joe had suggested, but then said, it's tough because we might bring someone in from more closer to the city that would be a little more diverse, whether it be Spanish, a Black family, whatever, bringing the families in, but getting them here is a tough one. I mean, if they live in Boston and that's what we advertised, and we've got a great candidate, now it's getting them here. Whether it's getting them to live here, commuting, the traffic, and so on and so forth. So it's not like we haven't tried. And I think the best thing is obviously to put it out there everywhere on Indeed, and I know the School Spring, and I'm not sure what other avenues they use, but whatever's out there, it's available for everybody to apply. So I'm hoping I'd love to see more diversity in the staff. One of the big things that I know happened up the high school, obviously a few years ago now, was the secretary that answers the phones is Spanish speaking as well as Portuguese, which was huge, I think, because that's the first line of defense, we'll say, when somebody calls. You can speak to them.
The first line of welcome, Chris. The first
welcome.
Line of welcome.
That's what I was trying to say. Yes.
So I knew that's what you meant.
So somebody calls. It's great to have someone that at the high school, anyways, that's able to put them in the right place. And if they push them to the person that they're looking for, and that person speaks Spanish or Portuguese or whatever, then fantastic. So I think having that a little more, and I know with the liaison for the community liaison, I'm drawing a blank on her name, and I apologize. Sheldon Mendez, Ariana. Adriana. Yeah, I knew it. I talked to her all the time.
If I let you keep going, you would have got the third name. You were close.
Yeah.
You were almost there.
And she's great. She's been fantastic in the way she connects families and so on. But the hiring of the staff, it's a tough one. I mean, when I was in high school at Woburn High, we literally had probably, a 1 or 2% a minority or different families from different backgrounds. It's just the way Woburn was. Little by little, it's transitioned, and obviously the high school it shows a much, and the schools in general show a much bigger diversity. What I'm hoping and I'm seeing happening at, little by little, is because there's so many more graduates of color graduating and saying, I loved Woburn High, and that's what happened back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. I think that the same thing will happen. You're going to see a lot of our graduates come back to Woburn, and guess what? The percentage is much higher. That having a diverse community now, I think you're going to see that change a little by little. Having it happen naturally would be great, but obviously, if the opportunity is there, that we can bring in some folks for a lot of the diverse backgrounds, and not just of color, but different economic backgrounds, and so the kids can identify not necessarily a color, but a situation. They could be based on where they're from. That could be a lot of different things. So I just want to see a lot of different things happening at the high school, and everyone feeling comfortable with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Chris. For those folks who want to get in touch and learn more about the campaign, Election Day is not that far away. We're counting down the days. Where is the best place for them to reach out to you?
To me, would be through the Woburn Public Schools website, which is Christopher Kisiel. Don't usually use that whole name, but Christopher Kisiel at woburnps.com. So if anyone has questions, I get lots of emails and questions all the time, and I see people, I'm out and around, so constantly getting questions, and I'm usually pretty prepared for most, and if I don't have an answer, I will definitely follow up and get you an answer. So I appreciate it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. And as always, Woburn, please continue to take good care of each other.